I believe in the power of imagination. I think it's something that as we grow older, we let go of. It's less valued as we get older. It gets relegated into the realm of children. But I think imagination is important. It can be something that sustains us and holds us. It's not just make believe. It's a skill that we have gained as children that allows us to see the possibility that is in the world. I think there's a reason why when we watch children that they have such creative and imaginative play. It's because it's such a fundamental tool for engaging life. It helps us see that there are many different ways of being. It helps us explore all the possibilities that could exist in the world. It teaches us that there is something that might be different than the experience that we are having right in the moment. In the one of my favorite children's books, The Last of the Really Great Whangdoodles by Julie Andrews Edwards, the professor is asked how he has built up his imagination. And he's talking with 3 kids that he has encountered. And he says, I had to go into training. I had to stimulate and teach my mind to become aware and open to any possibility. I was like an astronaut preparing to go to the moon. Think how long they studied before they began their journey. That's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. 200 years ago, who would have believed it possible that a person could get to the moon? It would have seemed just as fanciful as my saying today that I have been to Whangdoodle Land. But man imagined going to the moon, and now it's a reality. And I like that quote because it was a reminder that things that may have seemed completely impossible and out of this world actually can happen. And it is our imagination that helps us dream what is possible. It helps us come up with ideas. We think about this phone that we all carry, and we would have imagined that we had carry a phone and really computer in our pockets. And yet, how many of us watched the old Star Trek and saw, the small, tricorders? We're seeing the technology that was imagined, that was created, and that was in science fiction. These were fanciful, and they're actually happening. They're being made real. And it's our imagination that helps us move from what seems to be impossible and makes it possible. So today I'm going to focus on spiritual imagination, how we can use our imagination to enrich our spiritual lives. And I think it works in 3 different areas: the soul, or how we connect to something larger than ourselves; the heart, our relationship with others; and the body, how we engage the world. So the spiritual imagination of the soul is grounded, is connected to what we read in our reading by Thomas More. The imagination, all those stories and parables and rituals, serves the spirit and gives image to the unnameable. When we try to connect to something beyond us, it is the stories, it's the texts, the parables, all the literature that's out there that shapes an understanding of something that is greater than us, something that people have tried to describe in many ways over millennia. And as we start to engage those texts and open our imagination, not as Thomas More talks about, as facts, but as story, what images does it elicit for us? How do we connect to these stories? How does it help us understand our own connection to something greater than ourselves? It may not even be the images that are in that story, but it may cue in us. It's like, oh, I see that. And this actually resonates with me more. This helps me understand how I'm connected to this larger world. It is found in even in the biblical text in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 18. It says, because we look not at what can be seen, but at what cannot be seen. For what can be seen is temporary, but what cannot be seen is eternal. And I think one way of looking at that text is if we can actually look beyond the things that we know that our senses are engaging us. Things change, the world changes, our faces change. As we look at our face in the mirror, it changes over time. And if we hold on to that image of one moment and not in how it changes, then we are holding on to that. But it's the things that we don't know, the things that we hold within us that is eternal. Our feelings, our emotions, our connection to this larger world, things like love, empathy, compassion are eternal. But there are not things that you can actually see and describe physically. Our imagination gives our faith grounding. It allows us to hold on to things that we might not be able to grasp in the moment. It helps us have faith in something beyond ourselves. So our imagination can say, okay, I have faith that love can get me through. I have faith that goodness can prevail. Being able to hold on to that, even in the midst of times where we're starting to wonder, well, is that really true? Is that possible? Our imagination can help us navigate, this is what I believe, and I can work towards helping that happen. Our spiritual imagination also holds our heart. We are beings who feel. We are feeling beings, even though we have many different ways in which how we access those feelings. And it's amazing how a word or an image can trigger so many feelings within us, even though it's just a word or just a picture. All sorts of things come to us. The Reverend James Love writes, everything is only imagination. That is, there is no world prior to our image of what ought to be in the world. We cannot live without dozens of mental images of things not present to our senses. Daily black marks on a page move me to deep emotion. Just words, just images. But such images make the world. Imagination is reality. So much of how we understand the world is how we have learned to capture it in writing and in picture, and we connect with it in many deep ways. There are moments where I'm going through the Art Institute, and then I'll just be stuck by a picture, and I'm just transfixed by that painting, and I don't know what it is about that painting that makes me feel so deeply and just want to just be in that moment, but I'm there. And then I start to imagine what is going on with that story, what story that painting is telling me. And it may have nothing to do with the artist may have created, and yet it has deep meaning to me. And it helps me find a way to express a feeling that maybe I might not have been able to express before. It also is a way that we start to begin to understand other feelings, our empathy. We can never fully understand what someone else is feeling. But with our imagination and our sense of empathy, it allows us to find that feeling, a similar feeling within ourselves, and be able to connect with that person. We are not actually feeling what that person is feeling, but our imagination is allowing us to be connected, to understand and create for ourselves a way to connect with the emotion of that person. And finally, we have our spiritual imagination of the body. And this is when we use our full selves to engage in imagination as a spiritual practice. We can use visualizations, ways in which we picture and imagine what we want to bring into our lives, and hopes that that makes it manifest in our worlds, or affirmations when we're trying to bring a different way of different in the world, have different ways of being, and we use affirmations to repeat that over and over to bring that. That's part of our imagination, to allow that possibility into our world. It also manifests in our action. As we talk a lot about beloved community. But beloved community is not something that we are experiencing in this world right now. But with the imagination, we can say, this is what beloved community is, and we can bring that into reality. It allows us to picture a world that could be, a world that is possible, and then provide us hope that it will happen in our lifetime, or maybe in our children's lifetime, or our children's children. We can have that hope that it will come to be because we can imagine it into being. The character Paul in the play 6 Degrees of Separation says, I believe that the imagination is the passport that we create to take us into the real world. I believe that the imagination is merely another phrase for what is most uniquely us. The imagination is not our escape. On the contrary, the imagination is the place we are all trying to get to. Anytime that we are trying to be our best selves, move into create a world that is more fair and just, we are using our imagination to picture that and imagine that, and then work to bring that into reality. It is not an escape, though it can be an escape, and you can use it as an escape, but our imagination can be the very tool that allows us to bring about the change we want in the world. It helps us manifest the possibility of beloved community, the possibility of a just world, the possibility of a community that is centered in love, in care, and connection. I think imagination is a skill that we need to reclaim. We need to reconnect to our childhood abilities and cultivate a practice of imagination. It is so important for how we navigate the world. And so, in the spirit of imagination, may we ground our faith, strengthen our empathy, and empower our hope. Blessed be. Please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 346 in the great hymnal. Come sing a song with me.